Hi, I'm Jeff Walters, and welcome to The Minutes. And thanks for listening today. It's great to have you along on The Minutes for the week of May the 26th, 2025. This is a City of Thunder Bay podcast. The Minutes takes a look at what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week. You can find The Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, including our YouTube channel and our website, thunderbay.ca/The Minutes. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. On this episode, I'll have a rundown of what happened at Thunder Bay City Council this past week, as well as an interview with Kelvin Jankowski, the manager of capital facilities construction with the city. The indoor turf facility was on the agenda this week, approving a contract to actually build the facility, and we'll hear all about it. But first, Council started off its meeting on Monday night with a deputation from a sign company looking to put a sign on the new Hyatt House Hotel on Oliver Road. The company wants to put a sign on the hotel that is double the size of what is allowed by the current sign bylaw. The bylaw is meant to minimize the number of wall signs in the city and is also meant to regulate aesthetics in Thunder Bay. Administration says exceptions and variances are allowed under the bylaw, and this particular sign would be eligible for an exception. The large sign of the hotel's name fits the general intent of the bylaw, along with aesthetics. The sign bylaw variance was approved. Council approved the construction of the indoor turf facility on Monday night after about an hour of debate and discussion. Finway General Contractors will build the structure for just over $36 million. A number of other groups were also involved with the project, including TBT Engineering, Critchley Hill Architecture, and Vern Reamer Architecture. Stantec Architecture will also be retained to provide a maximum of $200,000 of technical assistance during the project. A special dividend of $4.5 million from TBaytel will also be used to help finance the facility. A debenture for $3.3 million will be taken out over 10 years to help pay for construction. The group that was mentioned was the successful proponent to design and build the facility, scoring highest in the request for proposals. Almost an exact year ago, Council told administration to prepare a design-build request for proposal with a mandatory bid cap of $42.7 million. Three groups took part in the RFP process, with the successful bid scoring the highest in both quality and price. The design includes energy-efficient building features that can be upgraded in the future to meet net zero standards. It also is slated to be visually appealing with an open concept front entrance and large staircase. As for energy efficiency, the building has a higher R value for the roof and the walls. A district heating concept is also possible for the future, with the turf facility being built near the Canada Games Complex, Port Arthur Arena and Stadium, as well as the community auditorium. Originally, the city thought it would have to borrow about $21 million to build the facility. Now a debenture for just over $3.3 million is required. This is due to the project coming in lower than budgeted, interest revenue from the Indoor Turf Facility Reserve Fund, external funding from the CEDC, and the special dividend from TBaytel. User groups will also need to fundraise to put toward the building's capital cost. The city is also waiting to hear about two grants that could help pay for a portion of the building. This includes the Provincial Community Sport and Recreation Infrastructure Fund and the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund Corporation's Enhance Your Community program. The grants would be for up to $10 million and $2 million, respectively. Administration says it is also looking for other large corporate sponsorships, which could also reduce the cost of this project. City administration will now go out and find an operator using the expression of interest process. Council will get information back on that request. We'll hear more about the indoor turf facility when Kelvin Jankowski, the city's manager of capital facilities construction, joins me here in just a few minutes. Council got an update this week on the first quarter financial report, or the variance, for the operating budget. The report notes that although the data is from earlier this year, it can show trends and plans can be created to deal with any potential unfavorable variances or spending that is greater than budgeted. The report says vacancy savings are trending in line with the budget, and at this point, there is no significant impact of U.S. tariffs on the city budget. Superior North EMS has a favorable variance of $300,000, mainly due to staff vacancies. This is partially offset by higher Workplace Safety and Insurance Board, or WSIB, compensation, healthcare, administration, and physician fees. Other items expected to be higher than budget include vehicle maintenance, repairs, and fuel costs. The Recreation and Culture Division is expected to have an unfavorable variance of $200,000, mainly due to staffing costs. There are some new regulations when it comes to staffing at pools, as well as WSIB costs and some contracted services. Thunder Bay Police Services has a $500,000 favorable variance. That's mainly due to staffing costs, being vacancy savings. There are also other offsets, including overtime, WSIB costs, healthcare, and administration fees. Police have now moved vehicle maintenance in-house, and that has reduced the cost of fleet maintenance as well as fuel costs for police. At this point, administration is also projecting a $300,000 favorable variance for the landfill's budget. This is due to higher than forecasted revenues and temporary staff vacancies. Any additional funds at the end of the year are transferred to the landfill's reserve fund at the end of the year. There is no overall projection as to how the city will finish 2025 financially, but administration says it will continue to monitor results and create plans if needed to balance the books. A few announcements on Monday night. Councillor Andrew Folds will have a Current River Ward meeting on June the 10th from 7 until 9 p.m. It will be at the Current River Rec Centre. Councillor Gray Johnson will have a Niebing Ward meeting that takes place on June the 17th at the Vickers Heights Community Centre. It will start at 7 p.m. And Councillor Albert Aiello will have a McIntyre Ward meeting on June the 25th. It will start at 7 p.m. at the 55 Plus Centre on River Street. There was a closed session meeting this week to receive legal information. There was no decision that came out of this meeting. Council approved the appointment of Councillor Kristen Oliver to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario Board. The Northwestern Ontario Municipal Association nominated Oliver for the position of Director, Northern Caucus, for the provincial group. All of her expenses for the position will be covered by the regional association. The term for the AMO Board runs from 2024 to 2026. Other representatives on the board from the Northwest include Mayor Fred Moda from Red Lake and Rick Dumas, the Mayor of Marathon. Council got some information this week about funding from external sources. The report highlights funds that come into the city outside of the usual budget process. Resolute Forest Products, now Thunder Bay Pulp and Paper, paid the city just over $21,000 for biomass chips, which come from trees that are cut down and chipped. This includes ash trees taken down as part of the Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan. The report says the city will look at other ways to supply the mill with biomass. This also helps the city deal with wood chip waste and provides revenue, which is a benefit to both the city and the mill. Just over $106,000 came from the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's surplus administrative funds. The money will be used on a new sidewalk on Rockwood Avenue, which is needed so a crossing guard can be stationed behind École Grand Morgan. Nearly $37,000 was taken in from scrap metal recycling from the Environment Division. In the past, a company picked up the metal from the city at a cost. Now the city is being paid for its scrap metal. The money will be used to upgrade the water meter shop on Mountaindale Avenue by building a heated storage area. The new area is needed as the city switches from mechanical water meters to digital ones. As well, the Friends of Chippewa Park contributed more than $28,000 to a number of improvements at Chippewa Park. A new accessible room and Moby mat to allow wheelchairs on the beach was added at Sandy Beach. A public dock was added to allow access to the pavilion, and upgrades to the campground include replacing log curbs, repairing log fences, pressure washing and restaining log buildings, and installing bollards to help guide parking lot traffic. A weatherproof structure was also built to protect the Wurlitzer organ at the carousel. The Thunder Bay Public Library was back at Council this week, looking for Council's consent for a new lease for its branch at County Fair Mall. Council went into closed session to ask legal questions during this matter. The library itself isn't allowed to enter into a lease, and City Council has to sign off on any lease with the library. The library says its current lease expires at the end of June. The current branch is just over 4,100 square feet. The library said it has negotiated a new 5-year lease with the mall's management, which would expand the branch to about 5,000 square feet. Going forward, the annual average rent would be 2% less than what is currently being paid, and the space itself would be about 22% greater than what is in place now. The report to council notes that there would also be 2 additional leases at the County Fair Mall for the occasional use of 2 additional spaces. The cost for these spaces would be limited to the utility costs when the space is used. City administration says it had reviewed the leases and had no financial concerns with the agreements. Council voted to move forward with the lease. City Council put a number of properties along Memorial Avenue and 13th Avenue under site plan control. The lands include 3 pieces of land, which are all car dealerships or associated businesses. Site plan control is when changes to the property need to be approved by the city for items like landscaping, parking, and stormwater drainage or management. And finally, City Council was presented with a notice of motion on Monday night. The motion is brought forward by Councillor Rajni Agrawal and is based off of the parking strategy update. The notice informs Council that at the June 2nd meeting, changes to the Parking Authority financial plan will be debated. The proposed changes include creating complimentary 4-hour parking with the option to buy another 4 hours at the waterfront, and 2-hour complimentary parking with the option to buy an additional 2 hours at other metered spaces on city streets. City administration said in a report at the last council meeting that this complimentary parking could drive growth in the core areas and would also help the public use and enjoy the waterfront. Debate on the motion and any potential changes will take place on June the 2nd. And that's a wrap as to what happened at council this week. For more information on anything that happens at council, please visit our website, thunderbay.ca/council. For years, we've heard a lot about the indoor turf facility. It's been a contentious project with lots of twists and turns when it came to costs, approvals, and for some, if the project is even needed. On Monday night, the biggest sign that this project is moving ahead was confirmed by City Council when a contract was awarded to the tune of $36 million to build the project. Kelvin Jankowski is the manager of Capital Facilities Construction with the city. He's heading up the indoor turf facility project, and he joins me here today in the Minute Studio. Kelvin, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff.
We've made it over the finish line, right? This is going to happen.
Almost there.
Almost there, okay. A lot to talk about with this project. What did Council decide on Monday night?
So Council agreed with our recommendation to award the design-build RFP to Fenway Contractors with a design-build team behind them, experienced in the development of turf facilities.
So you say they're experienced in turf facilities. I wouldn't think that there's a big market for this.
You know, surprisingly, there's several in the country built every year, particularly in this case. Jeff Penner previously designed the Winnipeg Soccer North turf facility, and his fingerprints in the design are very much apparent in this one.
Okay, not a carbon copy necessarily, but...
No, certainly not, no. And this is not quite as big as Winnipeg Soccer North. Winnipeg Soccer North was probably the basis between Soccer North and Soccer South for the Chapels development.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about the selection process. How did we kind of get to where we are today?
So once Council gave us direction to proceed with the design-build RFP, we did a pre-qualification document and we put it out to market. We got 3 submittals. All 3 were sufficient to proceed to the invited RFP process. And then over the course of the winter, those three respondents developed proposals, extensive proposals, and then once we got to that point where we received the proposals, we evaluated them partially on quality and also on cost to determine the winning respondent.
And from what I understand, this was I think it was called a 2-envelope process. Is that how we did it? That's
correct. So we typically will not look at price unless the respondents meet the quality points. So that means that each of the respondents have to meet a minimum quality standard before their proposal is evaluated for price.
And these proposals, what were some of the things that you said had to be in the proposal?
So the basis of the proposal is the snow concept that was brought to council. The amenities that were in there were a minimum standard, and then part of our standard would be the facilities design standard in terms of energy efficiency that we applied. the minimum field sizes, the minimum amenities in terms of change rooms, circulation space, and the like, site development, minimum number of parking spaces, things of that nature. So every one of the respondents met those criteria to a lesser or greater degree. So once they met that criteria, then we could move to the cost side.
And then when we looked at, I guess, the storing or the different proposals that were given to you, how close were they, or were they wildly different from each other?
They weren't wildly different. As I said in council, all three of them were under the threshold, but that's the cost span ran from the Finway submission all the way to the top of the threshold. So that was a $10 to $11 million spread in terms of the overall cost of the project. In the case of Finway's submission, they also got the highest number of quality points. So they were already in the lead from a quality perspective before we even opened the cost envelope.
What are some of the unique features of this future turf facility? What do you see in there you get excited about?
I think beyond the fact that it's a turf facility and the primary obviously the primary use is turf sports, we were able to include a mezzanine, which wasn't in the indicative design package originally, which was a big feature of the chapel's design that users really liked. So that's in there. The other thing that's in there that's kind of over and above is the boardroom / multi-purpose room that has viewing area over top of the field, and so that's going to be a really nice amenity to use once the building is constructed.
There are a number of changes when it came to costing for this project over the years. So we're at that $36 million amount that we're at now, the total amount. How do we get to all the changes that we've had? What I guess did we have to do to get changes to this project?
Well, definitely from the original chapel's design, the amenities were scoped down, certainly. The walking track was removed. The FIFA size full field was no longer a requirement. And then obviously the relocation and lower piling costs comparative to chapels is a cost savings. But also in consideration for chapels during the actual bid being during COVID and the uncertainties that were inherent in that process, that also drove price during that time. On the other side of the coin, now we have threats of tariffs and things of that nature they're driving price, but they're not impacting the market right now in the way that they could in the future. From our perspective, right now there's no Canadian tariffs on imported products, and a lot of the products that we're using in the facility are Canadian sourced, and so will be tariff proof.
Should provide some insulation for us there.
Yes.
Yeah. Next steps for this project. Obviously, the contract awarded just this week, but what are the next steps for this?
So next steps are ratification next week. Then shortly thereafter, we'll execute the contracts and have mayor and clerk sign off on that. And then we'll proceed with detailed design. Right now, the contractor's indicating that concrete piling will start sometime in July if there's no hiccups, and then grade beam being concrete slab pour in August. And then September, the steel will start rolling in and start erecting the steel frame. And then over the course of the winter, they'll be putting together the building. And then next year will be site works and interior fit up. And right now, the anticipated completion date is October 2026.
So just in time for winter. Yeah, perfect timing. What about operations? I know that there's still some pieces to figure out when it comes to how we're going to operate this facility.
So right now, the business case was based on a city-run operation that was presented previously to council, but we will be going out for expressions of interest in operating for an outside operator potentially. That's not in my hands anymore. I'm the construction side, so speaking to Recreation, Culture, Community Services, we'll be spearheading that.
You'll be handing that off. You'll be handing that off.
I'll be involved to some degree, but but they'll be doing the bulk of that work for sure.
Okay, we'll let you get it built first. How about that?
Yeah. Well, no, I hope we had the operator in place well before it's built.
Well, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But you know what I mean. Kelvin, appreciate you coming in today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff.
That's Kelvin Jankowski. He is the manager of Capital Facilities Construction here with the city, and he joined me today in the Minutes studio. And a big thanks for listening to the Minutes this week. Of course, if you want more information about City Council, agendas, or minutes, visit thunderbay.ca/council. If you want to listen to past episodes, just check out our website, thunderbay.ca/theminutes. You can also find the Minutes wherever you get your podcasts, plus you can find us on YouTube and on our website as well. If you want to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening at City Hall, just hit that subscribe button. I'm Jeff Walters. Thanks for listening this week. We'll chat again next week. Make it a great day.